Alright guys, we have the details for Wandjina over here, and again, I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly, and she seems like she's going to be a pretty good servant. Now, she is quick, and hey, don't go anywhere, don't leave, but she is a quick servant, but she's a quick single target servant, and it does look like her kit is pretty nice. Like, she's got all of the good things that you would want from a single target DPS, and she has kind of, not a new mechanic, but she has an interesting way of interacting with her damage mod. Now, we're going to navigate through this because some of the initial translations are a little bit rough, but I've looked at some of the other ones to kind of clarify how things are working, so you just bear with some of the, Atlas Academy translations. I'm also working with some other copies over here that seem to explain things a little bit better. Now, first and foremost, let's just kind of look at the NP because that's where they have the NP gain and stuff over here. Her NP gain is quite high, and she's got nice hits on all of her cards, right? Her quick being at 4, the NP being at 7, and the arts being at 3, with 0.75% NP gain should mean that this unit does not have any issues really getting to their NP. But even if they do have, say, a battery, and they have a regenerating NP buff on them as well, so they should not really struggle to get to their NP, which is nice, right? It's very good when your DPS servant, oh, here's a crazy concept, can actually fire their NP, right? That's always like a crazy thing. It's like, well, this NP could do a lot of damage, but if I'm never getting to it, then it doesn't really matter. Think of like Skahawk or Maid Alter before Scotty came out, where they kind of had issues genning their NP. So it's like, oh, I could do this huge megaton nuke with their NP, but it doesn't really matter if I'm not getting to it. So that's very good. Then we get to her skills. They're all just really kind of good right now. This new trait that she's going to be applying to herself is called Spirit's Wrath, I believe is how it's being translated. And so this is kind of where the new mechanic on our NP will start to come up, but we'll get to that in just a second. So as you can see here, just good stuff on, the first skill over here. 20% quick, 20% buster, which is nice. Double quick, double buster deck, so she can kind of do some nice effective damage on both of those. I do wish this would be like 30%, but I don't know, it seems like they're holding out a little bit on us with this one. I just don't like it when they do the 20%. And I did already check, there's, nothing over here on the passives that give her, like, say, a passive 10% to bump that up a little bit. So that sucks a little bit, but I'm willing to let it slide because the rest of her kit is actually pretty good. Now, you'll notice over here that whenever she normal attacks, she gives herself this, Spirit's Wrath thing over here for 5 turns, right? This is going to be very important for her NP. Again, we'll get to that later, but she also gives herself 2 hits of evasion over here for survivability, which is going to be good, right? Because as we all know, Scotty basically does nothing to keep your team alive, right? It's, pretty notorious that, Castoria won't let anybody go down. Koyanskaya and Oberon pretty much will just let you truck through any boss, and even if you don't truck through them in 3 turns, because Koyanskaya is lowering your skill cooldowns, you're probably ready to go by the time, you reach turn 4 again anyway, right? And you're just going to drop a megaton nuke on them with, Oberon over there. So at the very least, with Scotty pretty much doing nothing to keep you alive, it's nice that she has some decent enough survivability. What I also like is that this is going to be up for 5 turns on a 6-turn cooldown. Now, you only have the normal attack trigger for 3 turns, so this will go down halfway into the skills, uptime over here, but you will still at least have these for her NP. So even after this wears off, you still get extra damage, and I do like how that is built. So this is very nice. Then we move over to her second skill over here, where she gives the entire party a 20% attack buff, and she gives everybody this NP damage buff of 30% as long as they have the human attribute over here, which is nice. That includes a lot of these servants, right? Like, it is pretty much like most servants in the game, as you can see. So that's very, very nice. If you want to use her as kind of like, say, a pseudo support slash DPS because of her third skill as well, she will do a very good job at that, giving everybody NP, giving everybody NP damage on a very high, 30% bar over here, and then giving everybody a 20% attack buff with the 30% crit damage. That actually can be really nice. Now, basically what this does right here is that if you have a human attribute person and then you get attacked, they give the Spirit's Wrath thing to the entire party, which is going to be very important because basically on our NP, she's going to get more damage the more of these Spirit Wrath things that are over here, and we'll address that in a second because I think there's a bit of a wonky translation on Atlas Academy's NP thing over here, but I'll clarify that as we move along. But then we have her third skill. Gives herself an immediate 30% battery, and gives the entire party 10% NP, not for the usual 3 turns, but for 5 turns. So even after you use the initial battery, for, 5 of the 7 turn cooldown, you're getting 10% NP, which I absolutely love. I think that's really, really nice. Unfortunately, you're probably going to be using her with double Scotty, and, neither Scotty really has the best NP. Normal Scotty's NP got a little bit better. It gives you, attack, some crit damage. Maybe you need the insta-kill immunity, or maybe you really need the one dodge. I believe the only thing that Ruler Scotty does for us is I believe she does remove 1 tick from all enemies from their NP gauges, right? Which is kind of useful, but not, it's not as crazy as, say, like Castoria or like Merlin, like these really huge supports that have these really, really good support NPs. So that just might be a thing that ages a lot better with her being in the party. Once we actually get a good quick support unit. Well, I don't want to say good as in like Scotty or Ruler Scotty's not good, but you know what I mean, a better one, a more modern quick support. But I also think this would be a very interesting servant to use. Just having 2 of them, right? Like double Wandjina over here, and then maybe, I don't know, some other pseudo quick support type servant. That actually could be interesting. Now, obviously, I don't think she's lawful evil. Where is that on here? Where is that on Atlas? I'm not seeing it, but I was saying that, or not lawful evil, but chaotic evil, because I was like, well, maybe you could use her with like Doman, or maybe you could use her with like Van Gogh, like double Wandjina Van Gogh, and you could maybe have some interesting success with that. I don't know. I'm going to test her out a little bit over on JP in the next coming days, because I do have Scotty, and then I could just bring a friend Wandjina if I don't pull her myself, and I'll kind of get back to you guys on that as maybe I'll double upload some different runs against Kiara and some of the weird what do you call it, ordeal call nodes, and I'll kind of get back to you guys on that. But I imagine it would be very, very fun to run. And then she also gives everybody 1,000 HP every single turn, and that's kind of nice. So overall, her skills are all really strong, right? This is probably like the weakest one, but I think you make up for it by the power you get from this over on her NP, which, I'll just kind of get into this now. First of all, she has built-in Pierce Invincibility, which I love that, right? I love it when your DPS servants don't have it on a skill, but it's baked into the NP, because that means every time she fires her NP, it's always going to connect. It's not even like, say, Ibuki or Shiro Amakusa, where they have to remove the buffs, because that doesn't always work. Sometimes the enemies have unremovable, say, dodge or invincibility for a certain amount of time. And so this is just like, outside of them giving themselves like special defense or some weird mechanic in the fight, the NP is always going to land, which is just a very convenient thing to have. Then she's going to give herself another NP damage buff over here, depending on her overcharge over here, which I do like. I like to see that. There's a little bit of extra incentive in going for, her NP last in the chain or something along those lines. Then she has a special damage mod against Threat Against Humanity, which is super restrictive, right? Because there's not a whole lot of guys on Threat Against Humanity over here, as we can kind of look. But a lot of these guys, well, I guess they're not going to show some people that are on here, but this is like the trees and stuff in the Lost Boats, or like your big beast type enemies, right? That you don't see very often, but they are usually some of the hardest fights in the game. So I do like to see that as well. That's very, very nice. But then you can kind of see this, I'm not going to say new mechanic, but this new damage mod that she has. So she gives herself a 100% special damage mod over here, which is very nice. I mean, that's okay. Just had to go double confirm. I believe this is just a free power mod. I believe it's like a Rosh, or say a Bima. Think of Chen Gong. I believe it's just that big free power mod that she's getting, that she stacks. So she gets 100% for free, which is nice. That's just free damage. I believe she actually gives herself all 4 buff types, with this being a free power mod. She gives herself NP damage, which I didn't mention earlier. She does just give herself some if she's in the field air over here, which is also kind of nice. You can get up to like 50% or something. You get to like ridiculous NP damage level. So I don't know if you want to use her with Oberon, you could do that, I suppose. But she gives herself that. She has an attack buff and she has a quick buff. So maybe that's why they didn't give her the bigger quick buff, because they were afraid that she'd do too much damage. But basically, for however many of these Spirit Wrath, things you have going on over here, she gets an extra 10%. So if you can get up to 10 of those, she's going to be doing real big damage. You can have a 200% free power mod, which is really nice. Now, it does say on self, but some of the other translations I've seen have said that are just present, right? Because then what's the point of giving your allies this, right? Because they can get these buffs as well. What's the point of that if it's just going to count the ones that are on yourself? So I think this is very nice. So anytime she attacks, she gets one of these, which is super nice, right? So you do a Brave Chain, boom, you're up to 140% on the power mod. That's super nice. But then if you also get tagged at the end of the turn, now you're up to 150%, right? So anytime you take damage, you also, are able to give yourself this power mod. So you can build this up really quickly. Like, you could build this up quite easily over the course of like 1 to 2 turns, right? Like, not in one turn. You can't get attacked 10 different times, you know, but you can do your Brave Chain, which is 4 attacks, get tagged maybe a couple of times, and then also, you know, attack the next turn. Maybe even put some of your command cards in front of your NP to really build up that damage, and you can build this up very quickly. So I like this servant a lot. I think she's going to be very, very strong, and her stats don't look bad either. Her stats are not looking bad. So this servant should be quite strong. The only thing I have against her is that she is a foreigner class servant. And that doesn't mean that she's going to have her special damage mod all that often, right? It's not like, oh, if you're a Saber and you could fight like every Lantern Berserker in the game. You know, the foreigners, they have a niche of really being able to go out and fight Berserkers and not take super effective damage against them. But I still like that, right? Even though we don't have, well, maybe I'm kind of splitting hairs and just saying that, like, well, with like a Saber, you could fight Lancers and Berserkers, but for foreigners, you're mainly using them against Berserker class enemies. They have a niche against other extra classes as well, because, well, let's be honest, you know, you have all these like weird extra classes, like alter egos interact with, you know, other classes, and it's just confusing, right? I don't think anybody ever brings those up. I forget that stuff half the time, that like all these different extra class guys can start attacking each other. Look, I was playing in a simpler time when all we had were rulers and Avengers, all right? That was a simpler time for me, going on like a boomer FGO soapbox. But yeah, I still think her being neutral against everybody will be very strong. That's probably why they gave her so much damage. And then I think she's going to be very nice at just absolutely toasting Berserkers, right? She's going to get in there and absolutely destroy them. And then if you want to bring her, I believe it's alter egos are super effective on foreigners, and foreigners I think are super effective against themselves, if I'm not remembering. So if you want to have her go fight some outer deity person, she'll go absolutely cook them. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What I might do this upcoming week is whenever I upload a normal video, I might upload a second video of me just kind of testing this unit out in different various stages and stuff. So look forward to that, but let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But now I'm going to go to sleep because it is super late, or I guess super late or super early in the morning. So I got to go get me some sleep. But I'll catch you guys on the flippity floppity.